Hello students, today we will read chapter number 3, Poverty as a Challenge. Let's start. Overview. This chapter deals with one of the most difficult challenges faced by independent India, poverty. After discussing this multi-dimensional problem through examples, the chapter discusses the way poverty is seen in social sciences. Poverty trends in India and the world are illustrated through the concept of the poverty line. Causes of poverty as well as anti poverty measures taken by the government are also discussed. The chapter ends with broadening the official concepts of poverty into human poverty. Introduction. In our daily life, we come across many people who we think are poor. They could be landless laborers in villages or people living in overcrowded jogis in cities. They could be daily wage workers at construction sites or child workers in dhabas. They could also be beggars with children in tatters. We see poverty all around us. In fact, every fourth person in India is poor. This means roughly 270 million people in India live in poverty 2011-12. This also means that India has the largest single concentration of the poor in the world. This illustrates the seriousness of the challenge. Two typical cases of poverty. Urban case. 30-year-old Ram Saran works as a daily wage laborer in the wheat flour mill near Ranchi in Jharkhand. He manages to earn around rupees 1500 a month when he finds employment, which is not often. The money is not enough to sustain his family of six. That includes his wife and four children aged between 12 to 6 months. He has to send money home to his old parents who lives in a village near Ramgarh. His father, a landless laborer, depends on Ramsaran and his brother who lives in Haziribagh for sustenance. Ramsaran lives in one room rented house in a crowded basti in the outskirts of the city. It's a temporary shack built of bricks and clay tiles. His wife, Santa Devi, works as a part time maid in few houses and manages to earn another rupees 100. They manage a meager meal of dal and rice twice a day, but there is never enough for all of them. His elder son works as a helper in a tea shop to supplement the family income and earns another rupees 300, while his 10-year-old daughter takes care of the younger siblings. None of the children go to school. They have only two pairs of hand-me-down clothes each. New ones are brought only when the old clothes become unwearable. Shoes are a luxury. The younger kids are undernourished. They have no uh, access to healthcare when they fall ill. Rural case. Lakha Singh belongs to a small village near Meerut in Uttar Pradesh. His family doesn't own any land, so they do odd jobs for the big farmers. Work, work is erratic, and so is income. At times, they get paid rupees 50 for a hard day's work, but often it's in kind, like a few kilograms of wheat or dal, or even vegetables for toiling in the farm through the day. The family of eight cannot always manage two square meal a day. Lakha lives in a kucha hut on the outskirts of the village. The women of the family spend the day chopping fodder and collecting firewood in the fields. His father, a TB patient, passed away 2 years ago due to lack of medicines. His mother now suffers from the same disease and life is slowly ebbing away. Although the village has a primary school, Lakhan never went there. He had to start earning when he was 10 years old. New clothes happen once in a few years. Even soap and oil are a luxury for the family. These two typical cases illustrate many dimensions of poverty. They show that poverty means hunger and lack of shelter. It is also is a situation in which parents are not able to send their children to school, or a situation where sick people cannot afford treatment. Poverty also means lack of clean water and sanitation facilities. It also means lack of a regular job at the minimum decent level. Above all, it means living with a sense of helplessness. Poor people are in a situation in which they are ill treated at almost every place, in farms, factories, government offices, hospitals, railways, railway stations, etc. Obviously, nobody would like to live in poverty. One of the biggest challenges of independent India has been to bring millions of its people out of abject poverty. Mahatma Gandhi always insisted that India would be truly independent only when the poorest of its people become free of human sufferings. Poverty as seen by social scientists. Since poverty has many facts, social scientists look at it through a variety of indicators. Usually, the indicators used relate to the levels of income and consumption. But now, poverty is looked through other social indicators like illiteracy level, lack of general resistance due to malnutrition, lack of access to healthcare, lack of job opportunities, lack of access to safe drinking water, sanitation, etc. Analysis of poverty based on social exclusion and vulnerability is now becoming very common. Poverty line. At the center of the discussion of poverty is usually the concept of the poverty line. A common method used to measure poverty is based on the income or consumption level. A person is considered poor if his or her income and consumption level falls below a given minimizing minimum level necessary to fulfill the basic needs. What is necessary to satisfy the basic needs is different at different times and in different countries. Therefore, poverty line may be vary with time and place. Each country uses an imaginary line that is considered appropriate for its existing level of development and its accepted minimum social norms. For example, a person not having a car in the United States may be considered poor. In India, owning of a car is still considered a luxury. While determining the poverty line in India, a minimum level of food requirement, clothing, footwear, fuel, and light educational and medical requirements, etc., are determined for subsistence. These physical quantities are multiplied by their prices in rupees. The present formula for food requirement while estimating the poverty line is based on the desired calorie requirement. Food items such as cereals, pulses, vegetables, milk, oil, sugar, etc. together provided these needed calories. The calories needed vary depending on age, sex, and the type of work that a person does. The accepted average calorie requirement in India is 2400 calories per person per day in rural areas and 2100 calories per person per day in urban areas. Since people living in rural areas engage themselves in more physical work, calories requirement in rural areas are considered to be higher than the urban areas. The monetary expenditure per capita needed for buying these calorie requirements in terms of food grains, etc., is revised periodically, taking into consideration the rise in prices. On the basis of these calculations, for the year 2011-12, the poverty line for a person was fixed at rupees 816 per month for rural areas and rupees 1000 for urban areas. Despite less calorie requirement, the higher amount for urban areas has been fixed because of high prices of many essential products in urban centers. In this way, in the year 2011-12, a family of 5 members living in rural areas and earning less than about rupees 4080 per earning less than about per month will be below the poverty line. A similar family in the urban areas would need a minimum of rupees 5,000 per month to meet their basic requirements. The poverty line is estimated periodically by conducting sample surveys. These surveys are carried out by national sample surveys organizations. However, for making comparison between developing countries, many international organizations like the World Bank use a uniform standard for the poverty line. Minimum availability of the equivalent of uh, $1 per person per day. Poverty estimates. It is clear from Table 3.1 that there is a substantial decline in poverty rations in India from about 45% in 1993 1994 to 37.2% in 2004 and 5. The proportion of people below poverty line further came down to about 22% in 2011-12. If the trend continues, people below poverty line may came down to less than 20% in the next few years. Although the percentage of people living under poverty declined in the earlier two decades, the number of poor declined from 407 million in 2004 and 5 to 270 in 2011 and 12, with an average annual decline of 2.2 percentage points during 2004 and 5 to 2011 and 12.